In a statement in front of Eastern European allies, President Zelensky talked about an unnamed secret weapon that enabled Ukraine to take down 25 Russian helicopters in a single day. What is this secret weapon, and what exactly does it mean for the future of the war in Ukraine? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's get to the bottom of it. So let's take a look first at the overall news story here. And this is, of course, the president of Ukraine at a conference kind of made an off-the-cuff remark that a Western long-range weapon took out 25 helicopters and 12 airplanes in a single day. Quote, partners gave us some long-range weapons. I will not say which one, but the partners will understand. With it, this is a quote from Zelensky, we destroyed 26 helicopters in a day, 12 planes that rose and then hit them with missiles, against which these systems worked. We destroyed 12 at a time. There was just something, he said. He emphasized that Ukraine defended itself with such weapons. It's not a war, it's a defense. It's part of our country's air defense. We destroyed those who attacked and had full control of the sky, he said. But we are on the same terms. So weapons arrive in 3 months. I cannot speak of our losses, but we take the amount of losses for 2 years, divide it into quarters. You'll see how many people we lost during those months. So this is, of course, repeated in, here's an article by Newsweek that says, the same story. Ukraine taking out 26 helicopters in a single day by an unknown long-range weapon provided by the Allies. Remained light on details and, again, alluded to the partners understanding 26 helicopters in a day and 12 planes that attacked with missiles, 12 at once, he alludes to. Right? Now, according to Ukraine's own armed forces, they haven't publicly said they've taken out any helicopters since October 19th when they said they destroyed a single helicopter. So it's not clear what this 26 is a reference to. There's also some information that a Russian Mi-8 may have gone down in early December. Now, of course, this is thought to actually be a reference to the ATACMS, right? Now, why do I say this? Well, here's the thing. I think by most accounts, President Zelensky seems to have maybe misspoke. He used the word downed, but I don't think that's what he meant. I don't think it is downed aircraft. I think it's a reference to, and here's some of it, the strikes against an airbase in Crimea. You can see here that Luhansk Airport. You can see in Luhansk Airport, you've got some fuelers, but you've got a pretty high density of helicopters here that would be relatively easy for them to take out. Now, when we look at this is the only source I could find for some of the satellite footage, but you can see there's a large number of helicopters here parked at the base, and we're going to try to see, here's an on-the-ground footage of that base prior to the strike, but you can see here the helicopters very close together, something that would be easily able to be damaged by a good, well-placed volley of ATACMS if they're able to be delivered with enough precision. So that's what I think this is a reference to. Here's the story. I think it is a reference to the October 17th strike, right? Ukraine says it struck Russian airfield, taking out helicopters, and it looks like it did it with the ATACMS it secretly got from the U.S. Now, we've noticed over the past maybe month or so, Ukraine has sort of changed its policy. It used to very publicly tout for weapons provided by its foreign partners. The reason is, of course, that oftentimes these partners paid a political cost, right? In the U.S., we agonized, and it was seen as dangerously escalatory to provide Ukraine with cluster munitions. And a lot of the critics said it was too much of an escalation. And so Ukraine very publicly said, here, well, let us show you what we're doing with these cluster munitions. And they released a lot of footage of these cluster munitions stopping Russian assaults dead in their tracks. Now, in the last month or so, Ukraine has become a little cagier. And the reason is pretty simple. It's because Russia has gotten better at countering some of these Western systems. And for Ukraine, when it publicly says, hey, we used system X or Y or Z to do this, then Russia knows, hey, okay, they said they downed our aircraft with a Patriot missile. And they said, well, the Patriot missile locked in at this distance. We know this about the Patriot missile, so here's how we can counter it. Whereas if Ukraine remains vague about the systems used, then it forces Russia to guess what system is being employed or systems against its forces, meaning that it takes longer for Russia to mitigate it. So the calculus internal to Ukraine has changed a little bit, but I think this October 17th attack is likely a description of what it is. First off, because it is the only way to down 26 helicopters in a single day, in a single attack, is for them to all be in the same place at the same time. And so the only place that occurs is at behind the lines airfields. And it's the last time that there was an attack that destroyed multiple helicopters. Now, it involved a Western provided weapon, the Army Tactical Missile System, and that it was obtained in secret from the US. So perhaps, even though it's sort of public knowledge, maybe Ukraine has actually kept this information secret, for not publicly acknowledged that they're using ATACMS simply to keep the Russians on the gas. Now, the attacks hit airfields in Berdyansk and Luhansk, which would make sense. Again, 26 is a lot for a single airfield, but 13 apiece is actually a fairly reasonable number. Now, they've said, Ukraine has publicly said that when this happened, that it was a 9 helicopter loss, including, of course, some air defense launchers, vehicles, ammunition depots, and other damage to airstrips. And open source intelligence suggested that, of course, it was ATACMS. You might remember that video, and that the airfield, we were able to count around 9 of those helicopters publicly that we could see had been destroyed. But here's where things are interesting. An insider said that Ukraine used an M39 variant, which is a cluster type of missile. It's a combination of ATACMS with cluster munitions, dropping 950 anti-personnel and anti-material bomblets over the entire area of the airfield. And so my thesis as to what happened is that the 9 helicopters were things that were publicly acknowledged that Ukraine had taken out. But in fact, that Ukraine later learned through maybe intercepted radio traffic or additional observation that another, 17 were damaged in the assault, meaning that they were unable to fly. And so, that oftentimes, if you're looking from above, some of those aircraft appeared to, I remember the photos, catch fire and burn to nothing, and those were obviously destroyed. But some of the helicopters looked intact. But remember, if you destroy an avionics system, if you destroy an engine, if you even damage small parts of the helicopter, and if Russia's unable to get those replacement parts, then you could down a helicopter by taking out, a small piece of the computer, by compromising the integrity of the cockpit glass, by doing some pretty innocuous damage that wouldn't be obvious in a satellite photo. You could still take out the helicopter. And so that's what I think this is a reference to. But it's a good reminder to all of us that Ukrainian victories aren't always as public as we might like to believe. And that while we certainly want to see Ukraine succeed, we don't want them to compromise their own operational integrity to do so. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. The only other thing, of course, if you want to get your caffeine, crush your New Year's resolutions, I hope you're doing great. I know thousands of you guys have already ordered StrikeGum. This is the 0 sugar, 90 milligrams of caffeine gum that you want to use to fuel your New Year's resolutions, right? It's great. So check it out, StrikeGum.com. Actually, if you sign up for our newsletter that sends you more discounts, you get a one-time 10% off your first order. So check us out, StrikeGum.com. Anyway, that's all I had, guys. Thank you so much. See you in the next one. Cheers.